Ultron feels so good this season. Oh my goodness. So first of all, this is meant to be a guide, obviously, of how to play Ultron. But why am I qualified to speak on Ultron? It's because he's my third most played hero. And although I most definitely have a negative win rate with him, it's still I love Ultron. Ultron's just fun. I love playing with Ultron's oil. But so. I love Ultron. He's a great character. I didn't play him that much last season, obviously, because the nerfs just really were a little bit too heavy-handed. But this season, from the very first game, he just felt completely different. So I thought this is a good time to put out a guide out there on how to play buffed Ultron after season 5.5. So I'm not going to spend too much time on his buttons because the character's been out for a little while. But this character doesn't have too much damage fall off. He does... There is some 2-tap goes from being a 3-tap past like 30-40 meters, I think. But you don't have that much damage fall off. You have a lot of range, right? You have your shields. Now you have 2 drones that all have different effects and stuff like that. You have your speed boost, and both of your buttons give you they give you personal shields, so you have some survivability for yourself as a flyer. I'm trying to find the team up. I'm going to look at this video later and be like, wow, the team up is right there. I can't believe you're not clicking on it. Up there it is. And this team up is pretty good. It's kind of situational now since you have 2 drones, but there are more uses for this than just healing and just doing damage. So we're going to go through a couple of gameplay, a couple of things here to kind of put the theory to test, I guess. I don't know what's the right way to say that? Who knows at this point? But everything that words are just words until you see them in action, right? So this is a game where I went 14-0, most heals, most assists, and it was overall just a pretty good game. So let's go in here and take a look. First of all, the season had just started. This was actually my very first game on Ultron, and one of my teammates just offered up, was like, are we gonna run Ultron like as if he wasn't buffed? So rule number 1, play whatever the fuck you want in ranked until it doesn't work. So yeah, anyways, so first off, I want to go over his positioning and his buttons, because what you do, the way that you position kind of dictates everything else. So you have to be really careful. First off, I want to go over his buttons, right? So I just came out of spawn, so I used my speed boost button. That was pretty obvious, but one thing I want to note is that whenever you're under pressure, both of your cooldowns give you shields, right? But there's one rule that you really need to take into consideration. If you are positioned well and you're under fire, then just use your self-shield button, right? Which is your triangle in this case. I'm sorry, I'm speaking in terms of PlayStation here. If you're under pressure and you're out of position, or somebody has an angle on you or something like that, press your circle button, press your move button, because the most important thing is your positioning. So once you get yourself out of danger, you're going to have a little bit of shields to kind of put up with it. So in this case, I think I'm positioned well. There's plenty of cover all the way around. I just heard the yonk. I didn't want to take too much damage. And another kind of little known fact is that your shields, your blue health, actually generates less ult charge for the person who's shooting at you. So it's a small thing. You don't really have to press the triangle button just for that effect. But it helps. Plus now that we have speed boost, a damage boost, it helps a little bit with the pre-fight poke. But yeah, I took a little bit of damage, but I'm positioned okay where I don't really need to press. I don't need to get out of position. So here, what you're gonna notice off rip. So look, when this fight starts, you're gonna see me all over vertical cover. So vertical cover is going to be the main thing that you need to look for in a map when it comes to Ultron. So I start right here, and then I'm going to start making my way over here, because anything that's in between the vertical cover, like right here, this is a death zone. This is a death zone. And it's not just because of the fact that it's wide open, but because of how long it's going to take you to get to the next piece of cover. If you're right here in the middle of the map, it's going to take you 2 to 3 seconds. And if you're getting shot at already, you're probably going to die. Or it's going to make you waste a cooldown. So when you're over here, again, if you take damage, you can just press your triangle button. You don't need to use your speed boost unless you're really under pressure. And if you're up here, you're less likely to take damage. And so you can start using your shield button a little bit more aggressively. and not using it to bail yourself out constantly. Now, your team up. The team up is pretty interesting because obviously it heals and it does damage, right? And it cleaves. It's kind of like Jeff's primary fire, but it's also a big ass ult battery. So if you see, if none of your teammates are really, really low and you see a bunch of people right here, like how I do, just shoot it in the middle and you're not going to miss and you're going to generate a ton of ult charge. Now, unfortunately, I suck and I can't aim. So yeah, it's rough. But anyways, so now we're going to put to the test what I said about the buttons. So right now, this Bucky, he's gonna grab me. So this falls under the category of I'm in a bad position. So instinct is triangle. Sorry, is my positioning first to get myself out of this guy's line of fire, and then I press my shields. Now, both of the buttons were necessary at this point because I was 1 HP, and this guy could have killed me with one shot. But it needs to be an instinct that once you're caught out of position, you move first, and then you shield. So, yeah, we're gonna let this gameplay run out a little bit here. Now, once you're, I'm lucky here that I have an Iron Man, but generally, whenever you're low health, you want to get really close to a teammate, and get yourself healed. You don't want to be too reliant on your other support looking at you because most of the time they're just not, right? So you, apart from having the thing about vertical cover is what's so good about it is that if you're all the way up here and you take a bunch of damage and you use both of your buttons and you're still low, if I drone my teammate up here, I can just kind of come down and it's vertical cover. I don't need to move left and right, and I'll still be in the circle of healing so that I can get myself healed. So again, the positioning dictates everything that you do. It's your self healing, your button use, your escape, your aggression, right, your damage, and all that kind of stuff. So here we're kind of in the neutral. I want to focus a little bit more on the damage. So I'm ult battering here, I guess you could say. So using the team up there, our teammates are a little bit low, but for the most part, what you want to prioritize when you're shooting people, it's just something you're not gonna miss. So it could be a tank, it could be a squishy in the back line. It could be pretty much anything that's gonna generate you ult charge, because the thing with Ultron is you put on your drone, you're gonna generate ult charge constantly with the constant healing, and then if you just don't miss with your primary fire, you're gonna generate it super fast, right? So even though sometimes there is more value in doing 100 damage to a squishy versus 100 damage to a tank, most of the time you're really far back that you're more likely to miss the squishy. So if you can just shoot the tank, or if you're in a position that you can shoot a squishy or a flyer or something like that, do that, but just don't miss. Number two are other flyers. Ultron is actually one of the only flyers that's hit scan, right? The only other thing that's hit scan is Iron Man's beam. So against flyers like Iron Man, Human Torch, Storm, not Angela. We're gonna talk about Angela in a bit, but with those, because you're hit scan, you can lay all the way back, and if they're out in the open, you can shoot them. And it's very hard for them to shoot you back. So so Ultron versus other flyers is usually a pretty good team up, a pretty good matchup. So we lost this point right here. Now this is why I say positioning and shooting at stuff that you can't miss is important, right? Because we're around this little piece of cover. I'm next to both of my drones, so if I do take a little bit of damage, I'm not gonna die. And then we just, you just poke away until something eventually dies. So let's look at some other gameplays here, because I have a ton of examples here. Sorry guys, this is my first time doing one of these guides, and I'm trying to do this in one tank. But this one, I called it oil because oil of Ultron. Oil is just great. In the beginning here, like around the 3-minute mark, if this... Oh man, I hate how slow this is sometimes. Boop, 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 boom. Whoa, that went back a lot. So this is probably one of the best Ultron maps. So at the beginning, you're going to see here that I droned my teammate over here on the side, just waiting for her to get in. I droned one of my tanks so that I can come down for heals if I need it. But for the most part, I'm right here. I'm right around here, so because I can look right down the middle. I can shoot at whatever's going to come through, and if they shoot me back, I can just kind of move left and right. So we're just poking away little by little, boom, boom, boom. The initial pre-fight positioning is pretty important here. So as soon as I start taking a little bit of pressure, I kind of get close to my magic, who I have the drone on a little bit, and then just back up. Now you're gonna see that I put in the her shield so that she can go in aggressively. Again, you wanna, when you drone somebody in the neutral, it's not just about farming ult charge. If you have a diver or somebody who's just being aggressive, you really want to make sure that you have the drone on them beforehand. If you've played Zenyatta from Overwatch 2, it's kind of the same concept where you want to put on your orb on somebody who you know is going to be aggressive, because if you put it on them when it's a little bit too late, most of the time your DPS or whoever it is going to want to back out. But if you put the drone on them beforehand, you give them the opportunity to take a little bit more damage before they feel unsafe. Now I press my shield button on this on the magic so that they can take a little bit more damage, of course, but it's also for now the damage boost and the speed boost. So that's now because of the buff, that's one thing that you can now think of when now you're going to see that I put it on the Angela as well. I'm just waiting for her to go in. And then as soon as she does, in case she grabs anybody, I have my triangle button for that little speed boost and the damage boost, right? And I'm going to keep it on the Angela for as long as I can see her and for as long as we need it. So this buff is really, really good because it now, Ultron was already one of those supports that you really kind of needed to have quite a bit of game sense and awareness as to what was going on in the game. So giving Ultron these buffs with the speed boost and the damage makes it a lot more forward thinking and planning as to what you want to do and what you're planning on doing, and then fully executing it after a couple seconds. So here I want to showcase another example of the positioning using your vertical positioning. Right now one of our teammates are dead. They're pushing past the choke here. We're probably not going to make it here. And I'm getting ready to back up just in case something happens. Now, we did ult, and I have my drone on our rogue, but I just decided to get out because I was, we're down one, they're pushing through, they have rocket ult, but you're going to notice my pathing. I go by this pillar, and then I get next to this pillar, and as long as they're looking at them and they're not looking at me, I don't have to press any buttons. So I'm still at a pretty good amount of health. I'm rotating around the pillar, and at this point I know my rogue is probably too far gone. I just booked it and got out. Now, here's something I want to show. This is a bad ultimate that I'm about to do right now. So a couple things with the ultimate. While you're ulting, you can't press your triangle button, your self shield button. So most of the time, before you ult, you want a couple things. You want to press your triangle button, number one, and number two, you want to look at what you want to shoot. So whatever you're going to shoot at, you already want to be looking at it. Because your circle button, in case whatever you shoot at does move and it tries to escape, you can dash and try and catch up with whatever is escaping. Or if you're taking a bunch of damage from wherever you are, you can press the circle button and just avoid all the damage, right? And you can keep shooting and keep self-healing. So I go in, I see that they're shooting at me, I press my triangle to try and move out. My mistake here was dashing to the floor where flyers are not really meant to be, in front of a Mr. Fantastic, a Blade, a Venom, and not really looking at the low rogue, right? So I end up just taking a ton of poke damage and practically exploding here. So you want to be careful. You're not invincible during your ult. Your ult only does so much healing, so you just got to be careful, right? It's not like you're not Invisible Woman, you're not Cloak and Dagger, you're not Luna. You will die during your ult if you position badly. So I think I do eventually get off a good ult here later on. So later on in the fight, I have both of my. I think we're down one. One of our teammates is coming back from spawn, so I'm trying to keep my teammates alive and trying to prevent a stagger. So I have one of my drones on the tank and the other one on the Bucky. Now you're gonna see here my positioning in this part of the map. For the most part, I'm right here. I'm around this church. I can go up and down the church. I can shoot this and go through the church, right? I can end up in one of these rooms, or I can back up around this pillar, or I can back up around here. This is the best Ultron map, in my opinion. So we're shooting here. I'm taking a little bit of poke. Now I'm getting ready to ult. I'm trying to shoot the rocket ult. Putting that over there. Now, the reason I ulted here beforehand was because let's go back a couple seconds here. They just finished ulting, right? So I'm thinking, okay, they're not. If I ult right now. Had some technical difficulties, but whatever. What I was saying was that the magic, if I ulted and the magic ulted at the same time, we were gonna force out an ult anyway. So this was a way to kind of force them to respond to whatever we were gonna do. So let's back it up a little bit here now that my stupid microphone works. Boom, boom, boom. She ults, I ult too. Now, because the invis ended up ulting, I changed my strategy from being aggressive to being a little bit more defensive with it. So I'm just kind of shooting at all my teammates here, trying to keep them alive at this point. It's pretty boring. Ultron's ult does the most healing in the game at 500 healing per second. So yeah, and again, as you can see, I saved my circle button for when I wanted to leave the invis ult so that I could leave it without having to get the slow. Lastly, I'm going to talk about one of the counters. Angela was one of the counters that I just don't have examples of. But another really annoying one is definitely going to be Spidey here. Spidey is he's just a pain in the dick almost the entire game. He has. Once he hits you with one spider tracer, he has an AoE aimbot one shot practically, right? So you kind of have to use a button once he hits you with one of those. So the playstyle that you want to have around a Spidey is you don't want to ignore him, but you also don't want to give him too much attention. You want to know where he is, but you want to keep doing your job. Right? You want to keep healing your team, you want to keep pressuring the front, and if you can, you shoot him back. But for the most part, he just moves so fast, and most of the time, it's going to be really hard to kill him. Now, if you have the opportunity to do so, maybe try it, but like, don't stay stuck on it for more than 5 to 10 seconds. So, at this point, so we're going to start off right here a little bit with, again, more positioning. So, although I'm sort of out here in the open by this bridge, I have two drones right under me, and the thing came up here and knocked me down, but I'm in the middle of my entire team, and I have two drones, right? So nothing's going to happen. Again, if I would have positioned a lot worse, if I was a little bit farther ahead, this probably would have ended a lot worse. So, again, you got to be conscious of your positioning before it happens. So I'm going to actually push up here a little bit so we can get to the point here about using your buttons correctly. So I'm going to push up a little bit more. So it starts probably around here. So button usage. The reason I'm down here instead of all the way up here is because I was taking a little bit of damage, and I wanted to put both of my drones right here where I can see them and where I can receive some of that healing. And from here, it's a lot easier to shoot kind of down main and not to miss. So I do start moving up a little bit closer to the vertical cover. But as long as I'm in line of sight of my drone, I'll be fine. Now, this is why your buttons are so are so important. So you have my shield and my circle button. What I mentioned earlier about being in a good position, this is one of those instances where Spidey was right behind me, so it's good for me to save my dash for moments like this, where there we go, boom. I felt the knockup from the Spidey, so I was already starting to shield, and then I dash out so that I can, thankfully survive. So in total, I think you get I think it's about 350 HP before going in. Sorry, when you use both of your buttons. So you're pretty likely to survive. Now here I made a mistake. I honestly should have died. And I think I do end up dying, but you're going to see why Spidey is such a pain in the dick. His CC is annoying, his one-shot is annoying, his burst damage is just kind of silly, but yeah, whatever. I want to go through another example here. I think I have it later on. Yeah, quite a bit later on. And this is probably going to be the last thing that we need to take a look at. So this whole sequence was really interesting because this is how you play Ultron into dive. So the reason that Ultron is so good into dive is because most divers are melee, and they don't, I mean, except for Spider-Man who has the aimbot one-shot, we can, you really, the way that you position and the way that you use your buttons is really, 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 really important. So here, I just got out of the choke. I'm staying low so that I can get some of the healing. Now, I know the Spidey is around here somewhere, so I'm really hesitant to get too far away from my team. So that's why I'm not all the way up here, but I'm not all the way down here, so that in case I do need some healing, I can just kind of come down a little bit. So I'm poking away, poking away. Now I see that I have the Spidey mark on me, so I'm looking around. I look to my right just slightly so that I can see where my teammates are, because when the Spidey goes in, most of the time, you want to make sure that you are not by yourself. You want to get close to a teammate or close to somebody who can see you. Because like I mentioned earlier, for the most part, your supports are not going to be able to see you, or most people on your team, they're not going to see you because you're in the sky most of the time. So if you do get dove, you want to know where your teammates are, so that when the dive does actually finally happen, you can come down a little bit, stay close to a drone, use a cooldown maybe. The best case scenario is you only use one cooldown and then he doesn't get the kill, right? So you want to be conscious of your surroundings for the most part, and you want to be aware of Spidey's cooldowns, right? If you're marked, then you gotta play a little bit differently, right? You can't just be out in the open. And I think this is my last example here. Let's give this player a second. There we go. Boom, boom, boom. All right, so we're getting out of this choke again. Both of the divers are right there. My teammates are a little bit far. So I'm moving away. I'm moving away. Now, because of the buff to the penny nest, I'm staying around here for the speed boost and the healing, and also for the mines. But like I said, it's always good to stay close to a teammate who can actually help, who can actually see what you're doing. So right here, I don't have any buttons, so I'm my only choice. If you don't have any buttons and the Spider-Man does come into attack, you can't run away. So just try to fight him at that point. 1v1 him. If he's gonna kill you, don't go down easy. Don't make it easy for yourself. So I came down a little bit for some of the healing. Now my teammates are starting to get a little bit too far from me. I see that I'm double marked. I have both of my cooldowns and I have a vertical piece of cover. So I'm going to do my best here to try and avoid getting attacked by juggling this cover and saving my cooldown for when I need it. So he sees me, I'm marked, I'm trying to play around this so that if he does, he can't just get the aimbot, like that. Once I start taking a little bit of damage, I dash closer to my teammates so that I can get a little bit of healing. And then I end up surviving a dive versus a Venom and a Spider-Man. And we do eventually end up winning this team fight right here, so we end up full holding. So overall, let's go over this one more time. Your positioning is probably the most important thing with Ultron. Vertical cover is going to be your best friend. So maps that that have a ton of that vertical cover, whether it's a really high pillar or it's like a long building or something like that, vertical cover is going to be much better than horizontal cover because you are a flyer. You want to take advantage of the fact that you're harder to shoot the higher you are. So once you have your piece of vertical cover, then you can start looking for damage. Then you can start looking for aggressive shields. You can start looking for ults, good aggressive ults, not just defensive ones. Trying to get picks here and there. Using your team up if you have it to cleave a bunch of damage. Now, for the most part, when you get your team up, I almost always come down to the ground so that I can cleave as much people as possible instead of shooting down at a single target. Again, it's just for if I'm using it as an ult battery and not just to save somebody. Because if somebody is low, I'd rather just point it at that one target and just heal them up. So there's that. Now your triangle, sorry, your shield button, you really do got to be conscious of who on your team can be aggressive, who on your team needs to be bailed out, right? Although it's not going to save their life all the time, the little speed boost might just push them right over the edge to positioning themselves a little bit better. So yeah, and this is another good example of the dash first, triangle next. Because I was in a bad spot. Obviously, I got dinked here by the Hawkeye, so I needed to move out of line of sight from the Hawkeye. So yeah, I know I'm kind of juggling a lot of thoughts here, but I hope you learned a thing or two about how to play Ultron, although I have a negative win rate. But yeah, if y'all have any questions, just to put them in the chat down here, and I'd be more than happy to help anybody. All right, have a good day, everyone.